Hi, I'm Katerina. You're watching Dante's Boxing Nation.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. What we're saying is if that mandatory is not available against Canelo, the WBO and the WBC will agree to a Benavidez against Andrade fight.
And they told you that.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, look, both guys got to accept. Andrade will accept, we accept now. Do you know what I mean? But Benavidez has got to fight Lemieux. He'll win that fight comfortably. And then let's see if he wants to fight Andrade.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? So fortunately for us, we still do have a couple of fighters in the sport that are really trying to bring boxing back, bring it back to the forefront, which means the best fighting the best, right? I told you guys when it came to Dazn, the best thing they could have did for Demetrius Andrade was rejecting his mandatory at 160. For those of you guys who don't know, Demetrius Andrade was originally going to stay at 160 and fight his mandatory Janibek. But Dazn, they refused to pay for that fight because Janibek was someone that no one has heard of, and that fight didn't really lead to any bigger fights in the middleweight division. Because he couldn't get the Golovkin fight, he couldn't get the Canelo fight when Canelo was there. Jaime Munguia, who's Demetrius Andrade's mandatory, he was refusing to take a title shot and fight Demetrius Andrade. And Andrade, he couldn't get the Charlo fight. So Dazn wasn't going to pay for the Janibek fight, which is the reason why Andrade is now moving up to 168. And as you guys heard in that clip, Eddie Hearn is pushing for the Boogeyman versus the Boogeyman, which is Demetrius Andrade versus David Benavidez. So after Eddie Hearn came out and said that we want the David Benavidez fight, to no one's surprise, Benavidez, he responded, and this is what he just said. He posted this on his Twitter account. He said, "This is David Benavidez. I've got my upcoming fight with David Lemieux. I feel like first things first, I've got to take care of my business by getting past David Lemieux. The next fight for me, I feel, is Boo Boo Andrade. Demetrius Andrade is coming up to 168, so let's make it happen, Eddie." This is fantastic news. I've actually been told by Paul Andrade, Demetrius Andrade's father, a while ago that this was the plan all along, was for them to move up to 168, either get the Canelo fight, because of course Canelo, that's always been the priority. So plan A was to get the Canelo Alvarez fight, become his mandatory at 168, and plan B was to force Canelo Alvarez to surrender his belt and then fight David Benavidez, because Canelo will have to surrender his WBC belt once he refuses to defend that belt against David Benavidez. So that will make David Benavidez the WBC champion and Andrade the WBO champion. Them fighting against each other in a unification bout would be huge. It's a game changer. It changes the entire landscape at 168 and puts an enormous amount of pressure on Canelo Alvarez to face the winner. But even if Canelo refuses to face the winner, things are already heating up at the 168-pound division, even without Canelo. Because you have the fighter who I believe is the most talented fighter at 168 and might end up becoming the new boogeyman, who knows? But it's David Morrell. David Morrell, the Cuban fighter, the WBA regular champion, he is a beast. This man does it all. You know, he has the slickness. He can fight on the inside. He can fight on the outside. He's a complete fighter. So it's only a matter of time before Canelo Alvarez will be also forced to fight the WBA regular champion, David Morrell, or surrender his belt, which we know it will most likely be the latter, which means by the end of this year, David Benavidez, Demetrius Andrade, and David Morrell can end up becoming the champions at 168. You know, it is a shame, though, that Demetrius Andrade, he has to move up and wait to get the most meaningful fights that he should have gotten years ago. but it is necessary, unfortunately. This is a great opportunity for David Benavidez and for Demetrius Andrade. This is going to be a huge fight and will catapult the winner's career. In fact, it might elevate both of their careers depending on how competitive the fight plays out. So even though Eddie Hearn said we're willing to skip the Zach Parker fight because that was originally the plan was for Andrade to move up, fight Zach Parker to become the #1 mandatory, even though the original WBO rule states that if you're already a champion and you move up, you automatically become the mandatory. But they created the stipulation for Andrade when it came to Canelo Alvarez. Eddie Hearn is saying that we're willing to skip past the Zach Parker fight and go straight into a David Benavidez fight. But because of the fact that David Benavidez already has a fight, he's fighting David Lemieux in April, I think, at least from what I've been told, Demetrius Andrade will still end up fighting Zach Parker. That fight will probably be around May. So we'll most likely get Benavidez in April, Andrade in May, and then towards the end of the year, they will fight against each other, which will be a huge fight. Hopefully things play out that way. The only way it shouldn't play out that way is if Canelo surprises everyone and he defends his belts at 168, which is highly unlikely. We already know the more dangerous the fighter is, the more excuses Canelo Alvarez makes why he doesn't want to fight them. Originally, Canelo said he didn't want to fight David Benavidez because he was Mexican. He said he's not fighting any Mexicans anymore. But then when the media and David Benavidez himself started to put more pressure on Canelo to take that fight, then Canelo, he comes out and he says he hasn't fought anyone. And of course, in typical Canelo Alvarez fashion, he calls Demetrius Andrade a horrible fighter. And we already know the definition, or at least Canelo Alvarez's definition of a horrible fighter. Just like we know what the translation is when he says, "Who has he fought?" referring to David Benavidez. So with that being said, hopefully things do play out the right way and we get to see the two fighters that Canelo Alvarez is avoiding facing each other in a very meaningful fight. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one. All right, now check this out, guys. If you're looking to repair eczema scars, burns and bruises, dark spots and blemishes, then this right here is the perfect product for you guys. It's called Andrade Face and Body Oil. Athletes and top-ranking boxers, they're also using it after training to reduce swelling, inflammation, and to ease the pain. So get yours today. Go to Andrade.com, like them on Facebook, and follow them on Instagram. Fellas, I've got some great news for you. If you've lost your hair or have a receding hairline, the time has come when you can finally get your hairline back through a process called scalp micropigmentation. So here's how it works. It's a hair tattoo that replicates the look of your hair follicles when you have fully shaved it down. So to get this hookup, make sure you follow and contact my man Scalp Carolinas on Instagram.